Item cluttering in Path of Exile has long been a point of contention for both game developers and players alike. Whether it has to do with the irritation you get when you can't see your screen because of all the items on the ground, or the fact that item cluttering can negatively impact your performance, the fact remains that many people have a vested interest in simply reducing the overall drop rates of lower rarity items. However, addressing an issue like item cluttering in Path of Exile is a problem that is a lot more complex than it may seem. Like most balance changes in Path of Exile, a surface level nerf or buff to the game often carries residual unanticipated side effects. For example, in Blightly, Grinding Gear Games decided to give summoners a massive rebalance, where they added new ways for summoners to increase their maximum minion limit without relying on too many unique items. They also reworked the skill tree to include the many powerful minion enhancing nodes you see in the tree today, and added many more improvements to minion skill gems, items, and supports. At a glance, this was simply a much needed rework that would buff and increase the appeal of playing a summoner build. However, as many of you guys may know, this was what eventually manifested into the popular minion meta that you would see all across the next several leagues. Now, the issue with this is the immense power creep that would eventuate as a result of how incredibly well summoner builds were performing in the end game. And so what Grinding Gear Games had to deal with now was to balance the overall difficulty of the game by buffing endgame mobs and bosses to accommodate the player base that was now clearing the atlas far too easily. But of course, what naturally resulted from this was that old builds and skill gems that once performed okay in the endgame were now falling behind because they lacked the necessary balance changes or reworks to deal with the new endgame. So you guys can kind of see how these balance changes can potentially lead to an endless cycle of headaches for the developers at Grinding Gear Games, and why simple solutions such as nerfing the overall item drop rates all across the board to deal with the item clutter simply isn't going to work. But then that begs the question, how can this issue be dealt with? Well, in 2019, during ExileCon, Chris Wilson did discuss how the company at least planned to approach the matter. In his talk, he mentioned how Grinding Gear Games had an ongoing decluttering project, where developers were experimenting with quantity and quality of the items that could drop in order to reduce item cluttering, but without creating too many negative side effects. The example that Chris gave to illustrate their approach in this decluttering project was that instead of having maps drop 500 items with 20 of them being rares, the drop rates could be adjusted to something like 80 items dropping, with 10 of them being rares with actual useful stats. Essentially, what they were working towards was a compromise where players would be equally excited to see useful items drop as they would be when crafting a useful item. Obviously, reducing overall item clutter would be in the best interest of the player base, as Chris also mentioned that they are also working towards a reality where 90% of the items dropped didn't need to be filtered out. Now, I personally have no doubt in my mind that when the day comes that Grinding Gear Games finally rolls out a change in order to address this issue, the developers will probably be met with a lot of flack from the community. It's no secret that there will always be players in the Path of Exile community who will find something wrong in every single patch or balance change that Grinding Gear Games decides to release. So with this video, I hope to at least shed a little bit of light on the type of good work that the developers at Grinding Gear Games are doing, the type of questions and discussions they are having before every new patch release, and really just the sort of people that are working hard to put out the best possible products for a community that they care about. I'm sure that with topics regarding changes like harvest, performance issues, or item clutter, many of the developers can get stressed with the type of feedback that often pervades Reddit, Twitter, and other social media platforms. So yeah, that's really what I wanted to talk about in this video. I do want to point out that although I'm biased towards supporting the developer's side, I do believe that they're just about as human as you and I, and that the comments circulating on social media can be quite harsh for something posted under the facade of constructive criticism. If you have any thoughts regarding the issue of item cluttering or how GGG plans to approach this issue, leave a comment below and I'll be happy to further discuss the issue. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you guys next time.